Hello there guys, Nintendo Fanatic here, and I'm bringing you a different type of video to do with the Pokemon TCG, and it actually is my first ever deck profile. This is the idea that after the Gallade box I got, I opened it up and I pulled a Xerneas Florges EX, and I decided to build a deck around Xerneas. It's my first attempt at a full deck. I promise the Nidoqueen deck is coming soon, I just need to order a few things for it, and it will be ready as soon as. Also, I wanted to mention about the giveaway. I have already amazed that I think so far there's 11 people that have entered the giveaway in like less than 24 hours, and for me that's an insane amount of people. So I'm hoping that this is going to be good, and you guys look forward to the winner as much as I do. But without further ado, let's get on with the profile. Alright, so first of all we have the 3 copies of Xerneas EX. This is your main attacker of the build of the deck. It's a mono fairy, I should point that out, there's no other types in the deck. With the moves Breakthrough and X Blast, it's your heavy hitter at 170 hit points, mainly used to break through your opponent's Pokemon and hopefully take a few prize cards while you are at it. Right, so your secondary EX supporter is Florges EX. Weighing in at 160 hit points, with the moves Lead and Bright Garden, it does do 20 damage times the number of grass and fairy Pokemon you have in play. So it's kind of your backup resources. This deck's built around energy transfers, transferring energy around onto the right Pokemon so you can deliver high damage for attacks. So we only run the 5 EXs, and then we have 2 regular copies of Xerneas with the moves Geomancy and Rainbow Spear. Rainbow Spear does 100 damage and you discard an energy attached to it, and Geomancy lets you choose 2 of your bench Pokemon, and for each of those, up to 2 I should say, up to 2 bench Pokemon. Search your deck for a fairy energy, attach it to that Pokemon and shuffle your deck afterwards. This is a great way to move energy around from Xerneas, and then you use energy transfer with the next Pokemon that's coming up. Move energies around to Xerneas or Florges and have that as your main attacker. Alright, so we run 2 copies of Aromatisse. Aromatisse is the only evolution Pokemon, the only stage 1 or evolution card in the deck that we run. Energy transfers lets you as often as you like during your turn. You may move a fairy energy attached to one of your Pokemon to another one. This is where Geomancy comes in handy. Xerneas lets you build up your fairy energies, then you use fairy transfer to move them around. You will rarely use this thing as an attacker for Fairy Wind, you'll mostly be benching it and hopefully using its ability to move energies around. Well, that's kind of your hope. So of course, because we run Aromatisse, we have to run its evolutionary predecessor I should say, and that's Spritzee. A basic Pokemon, 50 hit points with the moves Sweet Scent and Flop. Sweet Scent heals 20 damage to one of your Pokemon, can be handy. You'll be mainly using Spritzee to bench and then evolving into Aromatisse, so no real tech choice there. That brings the Pokemon count to 13. You only run 13 Pokemon in this deck, it's all you'll really need, unless you want to tech in an additional Florges or a 4th Xerneas. Right, so for the Stadium card we have 4 copies of Fairy Garden. Each Pokemon that has a Fairy energy attached to it, both yours and your opponent's, has no retreat cost. And as especially you run Xerneas and Florges as your main attackers and they have 2 retreat cost, they become free retreat, so you don't have to really pay for energies and you get to keep the consistency. So we now move on to the supporter lineup, and we have 4 copies of Professor Sycamore. You discard your hand and draw 7 cards. The old format had Professor Oak's New Theory, but I think with the rotation, Sycamore was a better choice now. We have one of my favourite supporter cards, Lysander's Trump card, which I run 2 copies of. I'm using the full art and the non-full art because I only have 1 full art and I like the diversity of using both of them. Each player shuffles all cards in their discard pile back into their deck, except for Lysander's Trump card. This pretty much lets you recycle anything that you would need to use. Could be a Sycamore, could be a Florges, could be a Xerneas if it faints, you know. Next we come to the first copy of a card that only has 1, and that's the supporter card Professor Birch's Observations. You shuffle your hand into your deck, flip a coin, if heads draw 7, if tails draw 4. So it's kind of used for conserving your hand if it's kind of a control aspect, if you want to say, alright, I've got these cards and I don't mind if I have 7, I don't mind if I have 4, I can afford to not draw an extra 3 this turn. It could be an optional tech choice for you. We have 2 copies of Pokemon Fan Club. You search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, reveal them, put them in your hand, and shuffle your deck afterwards. This is so that you can draw into, if you don't draw into the Spritzee or the Xerneas or Florges, any real good attackers in your first hand, and you've already mulliganed, you can draw again. and you drew into a Spritzy but you want to bench a few more for another Aromatisse, Pokemon Fan Club is probably your way out of that. Next you have a copy of Xerneas, which just lets you draw 3 cards. I decided to tech one in because I needed some supporter lineups, and I thought, you know what, drawing 3 cards, just in case you didn't want to chance it with Birch, you have the option to just draw 3 cards. We also have Xerneas, 2 copies of Xerneas, the supporter card. You shuffle your hand into your deck and then draw 5 cards. This is like Xerneas, but you just shuffle your hand in first, so if you have 3, it's more kind of a mix between Birch and Xerneas if you just want to conserve some of your cards but still get a good draw out of it. Then we have Lysander. Lysander's kind of interesting because if any of you have played X and Y, you'll know that he wasn't the most likeliest of villains because he was doing it for what he perceived to be the ethical reason as to why the world was going to end. He thought, I'm saving the world from people who have selfish perceptions and we need to share what we have. But you kind of knew he was the enemy because he has like orange hair and flower orange, so it's kind of a... It could have been a coincidence, and it more than likely, more often than not, would have been. But the game had to have an antagonist. But back to the actual TCG card. You switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with one of his or her active Pokemon. This is good for drawing them out of their powerful stuff, so if they've got like a Plasma Deoxys or a Xerneas EX or a Xerneas EX or something in play and you don't want to deal with it at the moment. Or especially with the new format, Aggron, because the Fairy type is weak to Steel. So being able to switch out that Aggron for something that you can actually deal with is quite handy. Alright guys, now we move on to the next section, which is the item cards, or the trainer cards if you prefer. This one is 4 copies of Ultra Ball. You discard 2 cards from your hand. If you can't discard 2 cards, you can't play it. It's that simple. You search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck afterwards. Some people would argue that Fan Club is a better choice, but it's nice to have some items to kind of bolster the deck, because you do have to play with a 60 card max. It's a weird rule, the TCG, it's 60 cards max and minimum. You can't have any more than 60 cards. Then I put in 2 copies of Energy Retrieval. You put 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. As well as Lysander's trump card, it's nice to have options to recycle energy cards, because sometimes you don't run as many. Like, some recommend a standard deck should run about 20 energies. I don't run 20 fairy energies. So it's nice to have that recycle, just in case you want to repile up the energies on Xerneas. Say your opponent disrupts your Florges strategy or your Xerneas Geomancy transfer. It's nice to have that recycle effect. Then we have 4 copies of Acrobike, the item card that lets you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one in your hand and discard the other. This is an efficient way to kind of pick out or cherry pick the best card that you need. Say you look at the top 2 cards of your deck and you have a Xerneas and a Florges, for example, and you don't need the Florges at the moment, but you'd rather have the Xerneas for power, so you need to attack with an aggressive push. Then you'll go for the Xerneas, discard the Florges, and then if you do happen to draw into the Lysander's trump card, you can recycle it. And the recycling continues with VS Seeker. You put a support card from your discard pile into your hand. It's not just the item cards that you'll be recycling. Now, even though you run 4 copies of Fairy Garden, sometimes you might not draw into those, believe it or not. So I run 2 copies of Switch just in case. You switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. It's a free retreat, basically. You don't really want to have to remove your energy because you only have a limited amount to begin with. And as I mentioned with the Xerneas EX, sometimes your weaknesses can overcome the Fairy build, so sometimes you have to watch out, so I run 2 copies of Weakness Policy. The Pokemon it's attached to has no weakness. It's a Pokemon Tool card, a specific archetype subset of the item cards. This is great, attach it, and then it has no weaknesses, so the Aggron's only doing the standard damage instead of that extra damage that can really sometimes throw you off. Right, now we are getting onto the vinegar strokes of the deck, so to speak, and this is 8 copies of the Fairy Energy. And if you look closely, yeah, they're actually shiny. Shiny energies, yay. When I bought the Yveltal and Xerneas battle decks, they came with quite a few Fairy energies in shiny, as well as the Dark Energy. So having those, 8 energies should be enough because you're using energy transfers with the Fairy transfer ability. Plus you'll be moving energies around anyway and can get them back with Energy Retrieval or with Lysander's trump card, so you really don't need to run as many as you might do in a standard deck. I also have 4 copies of Wonder Energy, which is a new special energy from one of the newer sets, which I believe came in the Primal Clash set. This card can only be attached to a Fairy-type Pokemon. The card provides a Fairy Energy only while it's attached to a Fairy-type Pokemon. You prevent all effects of your opponent's attacks except damage done to Fairy-type Pokemon the Fairy-type Pokemon that this card is attached to. existing effects still apply, basically. So your opponent can't do more damage, they can't poison your Pokemon, they can't really be affected by status conditions, is what I'm saying. And it's kind of handy, so if you're facing a deck that uses like Verbanks and Hypnotoxic Lasers, you kind of can get around that. Alright guys, and so for this one song we have the 2 copies of Double Colorless Energy. These have been around since the game's inception, back in the late 90s. Been reprinted many times because it's still a useful card. It provides double the normal energies needed. This is mainly used for, if only used, for Xerneas EX blast attack. Just in case you need to hit strong, and you need to knock something out, you need to get something out of the way. It's like, get down again. The Schwarzenegger technique. But yeah, that's the 2 copies of Double Colorless Energy. Alright guys, so that was my Xerneas EX deck. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope it informed you on some combos or some tactics that you might want to apply to your own decks. If you do find a variant of it or decide to make the deck similarly, please send me the link if you make a video on it. I'd really like to see it. I've just been informed by myself, because I do that this is my 14th video, so 14 videos in 14 days. Not bad, huh? Some of them were shot. I think I did 2 videos in one day, twice. I think I've only taken 2 days break from these videos. So, and again, you guys are the reasons that I keep making these videos, because you keep watching them, so thank you, once again. And yeah, best of luck to everyone in the competition, the giveaway. Thank you, and bye-bye.